There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to the Western Huntsman Podcast. This is Jim Huntsman, your host, coming at you from the Broken Tine studio in a pre-recorded intro here. Because if you're listening to this, I'm up hunting, and I hope you are too. And hopefully this podcast episode could find you. I got a great guest today for you. The intro is going to be super quick because all I got to tell you guys. And it's really important because I think by the time this releases, we're in mid-September, peak rut. For all you September archery hunters out there, if you're struggling, if you're having a hard time, you're thinking about throwing in the towel and going home or whatever, no, man. Push yourself. Get back out on the mountain. Go deeper. Go higher. Go further. Keep calling. Keep doing whatever you're doing. Get that elk down, man. Get an elk tagged out. It'll be worth it. I promise. So I'm telling you that as much as I'm telling myself that, because I know by the time this releases, I'll be, I'd have been in the field for about a week or so at that point, and probably a lot of miles on the boots, and it can wear you out. It can wear a guy out, right? So get out there and just put your head down and keep going, guys. All right. So good luck with that, by the way. And just a quick reminder for you youth hunters, we're almost there. We're almost there. So just keep bearing with us. We're just sorting through the final essays, and we will get those sorted out as soon as I get back into town and get those winners their prizes, because I'm really excited about that. All right, guys. Today I'm talking to Andy Dansereau, and Andy is he's a butcher down in the Boise area. And we talk a lot about meat care. We talk about getting your meat ready to go to the butcher. The differences between different types of butchers out there and stuff like that. What are you going to get your meat back? Are you going to get somebody else's meat back? That kind of stuff. Just a really good conversation on the whole meat topic and taking care of that game meat and getting it out and processed and so it tastes right, smells right, all the stuff we're looking for, right? So Andy is an awesome dude. I really like him. We've never met face to face, but we've kind of been friends on through these social media channels and have had conversations back and forth a few times about hunting and ethics and just different topics like that. He's a lifelong Idahoan who is he's a fantastic hunter, and he's one of those guys that just I'm proud to know him, and you guys will be proud to hear from him. So he's a great guy. Check him out. The company that he owns is called Get Your Meat LLC, and again, he's down in Boise, and he named it that because we talk a little bit about that in this episode. You never know sometimes, and I think a lot of people are leery of this. You don't know if you're getting your meat back or somebody else's meat back, or somebody's like you take an elk in and you end up getting some bear meat or something like that. You know what I mean? And so I've always wondered about that. And I'm way up in North Idaho, and so I don't get to use Get Your Meat LLC for where I'm at. But if I was down in that area, I certainly would. My butcher up here that I use, just because I just don't have time to process it myself, and so I use Mountain View Custom Meats, and I'm pretty confident in Mountain View, and the owner's an awesome dude, and just wanted to give them a shout out. I'm proud to use you guys if you're listening. So, but if you are down in the southern Idaho area, the Boise area, give Andy a call and let him quote you the butcher fees and kind of check out his website. It's in the show notes. and let them know the Western Huntsman sent you. And I think it's a cool, it's a kind of a newer operation for him, and he's just getting off the ground, and he's one of those straight shooting guys that'll take really good care of you. So I think you guys will enjoy this episode. Without further ado, guys, let's get into it with Andy, and have a great rest of your week. I will talk to you. I'll be back in town and back in service, hopefully by the next episode. So stay with me. We'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good week. All right, guys, before I forget how to pronounce his name, I'm going to just say it right now. Andy Dansereau, how you doing, brother?
I am doing great, Jim. How are you?
Good, man. And I said your name right?
You did. You nailed it.
You got a tough name. You'd sent in some comment or something at some point, and I was announcing it on the podcast or whatever, and I was using everybody's last names, and then I got to yours, and I'm like, oh, my God, man, I'm going to butcher that name. I'm not even going to try it.
Yeah, I think I remember that episode.
So Andy is he's a butcher down in Boise, Idaho, and he's got a company called Get Your Meat, LLC, and this is kind of like a new venture for you, right?
Yeah, as far as owning my own business, I cut meat for many years, but yeah, owning my own business, doing my own thing, yeah, it's a new venture.
And so already today, as we're recording this, it's September 4th. You've already got 4 elk in there. And you just got done cutting up a bear.
I did.
And then when we're done, you're going to go after it with you got an antelope.
Yep. Yeah, there's an antelope, and then when I get that guy done, I'll start on an elk.
Cool. So obviously, just starting out, this thing's starting to roll pretty good, huh?
You know, it really has. I was real impressed. I got a couple of friends, and you know, I think you had actually talked to one of them. I think with Jeff Morris. Was that you that did it?
Yeah, he hasn't been on the show yet, but we keep threatening to get him on the show. But we've talked on Facebook and email and stuff like that. But I want to get him and Tad Sherman on the show.
Yep. Yeah, I've got Tad's antelope sitting in my freezer right now. Yeah, they bring me stuff, and they refer a lot of guys over to me, and it's really taken off. I couldn't be happier that, you know, the stuff that they send over to me.
That's awesome, man. I'm happy for you. This is going to be cool watching this thing grow. And I think I've told you before, I wish I was closer to you, because it's a good 9-hour drive to Boise for me. So I wish I had somebody like you close. We've got a good butcher up here. I use this place called Mountain View Custom Meats, but I like the idea of your operation and how you started it. And we're going to talk all sorts of stuff, meat related and hunting and all sorts of stuff today. So I appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where are you from, Andy? Give us a little background on you first.
Well, I'm from Idaho, born and raised, been here 40 years. Thought one day I was going to move to Alaska, and I just can't leave Idaho. I like Idaho too much.
You know what would keep me out of Alaska, man? Because my wife and I, we've been talking about Alaska for a long time, and the summers, we like swimming in the river and in the lakes and going camping and stuff like that, and they're so short and they don't get that warm.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, to each his own.
Well, I heard I had a buddy that his brother worked in Osaka, and I guess their weather in Osaka is real similar to what it is here in Boise.
Oh, really?
Except you're right. Yeah, except you're right with the summer. It's a shorter summer, but they still have, higher temperatures. They get up into like the 70s and stuff, from what I understand.
Yeah, we see up here in North Idaho, we don't have very long. Like, you have a lot longer of a summer in Boise than we do. Like, you guys are getting into the 80s in like late April, May sometimes,
Right.
And we, like, our summer up here is pretty much strictly July and August, and then after that, it's summer's gone. So
sounds like I need to move up there then.
Yeah, come see me, man. Come on up.
Yeah, I like cold. I don't like heat.
Yeah, that's why it's perfect here in North Idaho for us, because we like heat, if we want to go camp on the river and swim and all that kind of stuff, but we only like it for about 2 months. And then the rest of the year, I like the mild conditions for sure. So anyway, so you're down in Boise, and you've been in Idaho your whole life, and just continue on. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll go from there.
Well, I guess as most people know, I'm a very avid sportsman. I like to fish and hunt and pretty much do anything outside of city limits. I don't really know what to say. I mean, this is my first podcast, so I'm a little dumbfounded, or whatever that word is. Dude. I just really don't.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm on a dating site or something.
I promise you're not on a dating site. This is definitely just, and I'm the same way, man. We'll start recording, and like I'll mispronounce words, and I'll forget words that I use all the time. I don't even have to be recording a podcast. Somebody was asking me today, I was getting propane filled, and the dude was like, yeah, I'm just getting into archery hunting. And what broadheads do you recommend? And I'm like, shoot, man, I forgot the name of the broadheads I've been using for like 5 years.
The sharp ones.
They're sharp.
I like the sharp ones.
Yeah, and they poke holes in animals, and that's all I know. So yeah, no sweat. Well, I want to really. I think that there's a few things that we should cover.
Okay.
Let's talk a little hunting, and then I want to talk about like kind of meat care and getting your meat ready to take it into a butcher. For those of us that don't have the time or the know-how to cut the meat up ourselves, like for me, it's a time thing for me. I've done it a few times, but I don't have the time. And I know a lot of guys are like that. I know a lot of folks just prefer to take it in, and we always wonder, what meat we're getting back.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something I want to touch on, and just kind of the overall process. So, like, give us an idea of what, like, your hunting background. What's kind of been your big thing hunting wise? Are you big time bow hunter? You rifle hunter? Do you prefer elk, deer? Do you have a preference? Things like that. Walk us through that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. I guess growing up, I was, my dad, my grandpa, and stuff like that. They all rifle hunted, and cousins and stuff like that. They're all in the rifle. And then my parents had started doing these 3D archery shoots just for a family thing to do back in the 90s. And so I picked up a bow, cool. And I really, yeah. So I started getting into that, and I really liked it. Back then I was shooting a bear recurve and winning all kinds of trophies and all that stuff. And I really dug it, but never really thought to do archery, hunt archery. And what has it been, 9-10 years ago, a buddy of mine took me into going through the class and doing the archery endorsement and whatever. And I did it, put the rifles away, and I've never looked back. I'm all about that archery elk hunting. I'm not real good at it, but man, I just enjoy being out there.
Yeah, that's how I am, man. I'm not a great archery hunter, but I live for it. So so you don't do any rifle hunting anymore, huh?
No, I mean I'll go with friends and stuff like that, mostly just as a spotter or a pack mule. But yeah, I hadn't even looked at rifles or anything in 10, 11 years.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, I generally, when I'm going after mule deer, I'm still rifle hunting. It's just because of the way that up in some of these units, the way that the season is time wise and all that kind of stuff, it just makes a little bit more sense. But I also enjoy rifle hunting, and I just don't enjoy it for elk because I suck at rifle elk hunting, man. I don't even know how they do it, especially up here. It's so brushy. But
yeah, it's definitely brushy where I hunt too. But I tell myself every year, because I've yet to shoot a bull with a bow. I shot a cow, but I've yet to get a bull with a bow. I tell myself every year, man, if only I had a rifle, this thing would be done. But it doesn't work that way with archery. But I think that's why I like it so much. It's an added challenge.
Yeah, I just I have a thing for getting a bull elk screaming at me and coming in.
Fight,
and so that's I think what makes that's what makes me tick for sure.
Oh, definitely. That's actually the only reason I go hunting. I really don't like me, I'm not one of those guys that, like, obviously I like meat and I'd like to have my own, but I kind of base a successful hunt on if I can get close to an animal. Can I get that bull screaming in my face? Can I smell him urinating on the ground? You know, that's what gets my goat, and that's a successful hunt for me.
Yeah, that's a great point too. I mean, and that's how I feel. I just have, like, I've thought about if I got an elk like the first day of season, I would be devastated, man. I would keep going and just keep calling in elk for I don't know, and shoot them with my camera kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's why we all get so many hunting buddies. If you get an elk early, you can just go with them and help them out and still get the experience.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'll do. If I tag out early, I will make an announcement that I'm available to call and film, and that's what I'll do. It'll be fun. So
I try not to make an announcement that I can call for people because they won't call me. I can't call for much, but
it doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter if you can make decent sounds. I think you're good. So, what do you like hunting the most?
Yes.
All of it. Do you do any bird hunting down there?
You know, when I was a kid, I was real big into waterfowl hunting, and I did a little bit of pheasant and chukar hunting. But no, I really don't do it that much anymore. You know, it's a lot of private property where I used to hunt, and you know, a lot of people out there sky blasting and just shooting at everything. I just finally said enough.
Like that southern Idaho kind of area used to be like this epic pheasant hunting and quail hunting area.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like really gone downhill over the last 10 years. Or probably even longer. I don't even know. Well, it's a lot like Utah used to have great bird hunting, and like it just, I don't know how Wyoming is anymore, but I don't know. I used to like bird hunting, pheasant hunting used to be one of my biggest things I would do, and I was super passionate about it. But it's just gotten to the point where we used to go out and every 10, 15 minutes we'd be kicking up birds. And now it's like you go 2 days without even seeing a pheasant, and it sucks. And a lot of it's just, habitat, agricultural stuff. But anyway, I've kind of lost interest in it, especially after my dog that I have now. All he does is finds porcupines, so I spend the whole night pulling pins out of his face, and that sucks.
That's kind of why we quit hunting over in Hagerman. Our dogs they've always been kind of mouser dogs, so anything mouse related, they're chasing around. And yeah, they got a hold of a couple of porcupines up in there, and we're like, okay, we're done.
Yeah, it's ugly. And it's expensive too, because I usually he's had them so bad I've just had to take him to the vet. I can't even get him out, And so anyway,
especially when they get the short ones in there.
Yeah, exactly. And he had them on like the roof of his mouth, in his tongue, all over in his nose. It was crazy the last time he found himself a porcupine. And I'm just like, so where my wife and I live, I'm always nervous because we have skunks and porcupines kind of running around this area, and I'm a bit nervous he's going to find one or the other, and it's going to be a sad day.
Yeah.
So, where'd the idea of Get Your Meat LLC, where'd that kind of come from?
Like I said earlier, I did a lot of butchering and stuff for jobs or whatnot, and kind of like what everybody says. And I can't say all butcher shops, but every one of them that I worked in, you'd bring your deer in, you bring your elk in, whatever, and you got 4 guys on one end, and they're breaking the animal down, and they're getting the sinew and the hair and everything off of it, and then it goes down the line, and before you know it, your meat is now mixed in with the next guy's meat, and now it's mixed in with the next guy's meat, and then you got the lady at the bottom, she's wrapping and grinding, and those big grinders, you can't turn those things on until you have a certain amount of poundage of meat to put in those things. So now your deer just got mixed in with some bears, some elk, some whatever, and I was just like, this to me isn't what I would want. I'm paying a guy for a service. I want my animal. I worked for that animal. I want my animal. So
totally, man, totally. I hate that. I hate the thought that, and I've had that happen. I know that, like, when I got some venison back last year, I am like 99% sure one of those cuts was some random elk. And I don't know how they took care of it in the field. I don't know how clean the
well,
meat was when it came in. I don't know. You know what I mean?
and that's the big thing right there. I mean, if you get mixed in with another guy's, you got a deer for a deer, just half the time you'll never even know it. But if that guy didn't take care of his meat out in the field, and it's got a little bit of bone sour to it, it's got a little bit of heat sour to it, it's just whatever. Well, now you got a nasty taste out of one of your steaks or something like that. And
yeah,
so
exactly. That's and it can be scary, man. So
it can be very scary.
We're going to circle back to that and how you do that. Let's talk a little bit about, like, what do you recommend in terms of in the field meat care and breaking animals down and to get the highest quality you can, flavor wise, and obviously safety wise, all that kind of stuff. Do you have like a rundown of advice you can give hunters?
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, to each their own on this method here. I know the gutless method is a big topic nowadays, and I've tried it once. And to be 100% honest with you, I'm not happy with the gutless method, mostly because when you get an animal on the ground, by the time you find it, even if it's real close, by the time you find it, your ultimate goal is to get the guts out of it and get that hide off of it. You need to get that meat to start cooling immediately. The earlier that thing starts cooling, the better the flavor is going to be, essentially. You don't have to worry about just heat sour. But what I like to do is I'll get to the animal, I'll break it open, go to gut it out. But the very first thing I do is I break the ball joints back in the back hams. Oh, absolutely. Especially on an elk or a moose or something like that. Break those ball joints. And the reason I say that is because between that pelvic bone and where those ball joints are sitting, you have that great big chunk of meat. Well, there's nowhere for that heat to go. So it's going to sit in there, and that's essentially where you're going to get your bone sour from.
Oh, gotcha.
And all that heat's just going to be trapped in there. So before I take the hide, before I take the guts, before I take anything out of there, I break those ball joints, and that's going to let that heat go out. And then I pull the guts out, and I got this from I did mobile kill for a long time, which is on-farm butcher, if you will. I'd go out, I'd shoot a cow, I'd skin it out, gut it, break it all down, stick it in a trailer, and take it out to a butcher shop. Oh, wow. So when I did that, I had learned, I had 2 2x4s in the back of my truck. And anybody that hunts, I don't care if you're hunting the desert or you're hunting the woods, you can always find 2 sticks, 2 pieces of sagebrush, 2 something that you can eventually make this cradle, if you will. And if you go to like any kill floor or anything like that, they're all going to have some kind of cradle. And what that cradle is you roll the animal on its back to where its legs are folded over its belly, and put a stick on each side and prop it up like that, and start skinning the sides down. And you lay those out like a cloth or a tarp or whatever. Then you start breaking the animal down. Well, once you get that first quarter off, you can lay it down on that, or you can go straight into a meat bag. And what that does is that'll keep a lot of the hair off of it, especially on like an antelope or a bear where you just can't control that hair. If you can have some type of clean surface like the hide or a game bag that nothing is going to get into the meat, like sticks or debris or hair or anything like that, that's how I've always done it. And I find that I mean, you're going to get hair on there regardless, but less is more, if you will. I mean, if you got a lot of hair on your animal, well, now if a butcher actually does take it in, well, he's got to sit there with either a little pocket torch to pop those hairs off, or like with a bear, that's actual hair. Now he's got to take his knife to it because a washcloth will just smear it all over the place.
Yeah, that's always one of my biggest challenges, man, is when I skin out a deer, for example, I spend like hours picking hair off of that stuff. And I was told that you don't want to use a wet rag because I used to hose them off, right? And
Mhm.
I was told that that's bad. Is that what is your take on that? Using water to get the hair off?
Well,
I'm
going to
talking
lay it down.
obviously that's not going to, if you're in the field breaking down an elk, this is going to be totally different than, I'm talking like you get a deer, bring it home, hang it up to skin it out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, any butcher shop you go to drop off your cow, you go to drop off a pig, whatever like that, they're going to skin it out and they're going to take a pressure washer to it.
Okay. So there, because it was my butcher shop. It was my butcher shop that said, "Hey, yeah, don't get it wet." But I feel like it was, I don't know. I've always done that. So it's like, what are you talking about? Don't use a hose to get it clean. But this girl was telling me, she's like, "Oh yeah, it makes the meat sour or something." Like, I can't even remember what her explanation was. But so you
it doesn't. Oh, go ahead.
So you recommend it? Go ahead and spray that sucker off.
To a point. I mean, what she's talking about at the butcher shop, it's not that it's making it sour. What it's doing is if you can't get it directly into a cold area, then I don't recommend spraying it off, because what that water does is it's not down at temperature. You need that water almost freezing, essentially. About 38 degrees is what you want it for, because if not, you're going to get bacteria growth, and you're also going to start discoloring your meat, and it's kind of a mess for a butcher to take grayed out animal, essentially. You want your meat to be red, not gray, and a hose is going to make your meat gray.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So that's kind of what she's talking about. And
that makes sense.
So yeah, a lot of butchers just tell people, no, don't get them wet, because mostly if they get a grayed out animal and they've got USDA or something like that in their shop, they can't take that grayed out animal.
Gotcha.
There's bacteria on it, so they don't recommend you do it.
Yeah, which my butcher does, because you can like take your pigs and everything over there, and they'll butcher them up. So that makes sense. Okay, actually, let's stay on that for a minute. So I've got a deer hung, right, and I haven't been hosing it down. Meat's still nice and red and everything, but like you said, it's inevitable. You're going to get a bunch of hair on this stuff, and I've been scolded. In fact, it's funny, man. The butcher that I use, and like, I'm just giving them a free shout out here, because they're not your competitor. They're 750 miles away here, but
absolutely, do it.
Yeah, well, they're not that far away, but I like to exaggerate. And, anyways, so he was the dude that owns it, Mountain View Custom Meats. The first time I took this mule deer over there, and they're used to seeing whitetails, right? And so it was like, he was pretty grumpy, which is normal with butchers, right? You take them and like they're kind of brash. He was like, oh man, this thing's super dirty, and I don't even know if I'm going to accept this. And I had tried to get the hair off of this guy, and did my best. But now, years later, I've taken a bunch of stuff over there, and like we kind of know each other a little bit better, and he's super nice now. But at first, he really bragged me out for having the hair. So now what I do is I hang the deer, and I will take, hopefully my wife's not going to listen to this. I'll take the tweezers out of the bathroom and go down, and I'll use tweezers to get the hair off the deer. And I'll do this I'll just sit and I'll do this for like an hour or two. And I get them pretty clean. And now I get compliments every time I take it to the butcher. It's like, oh, yeah, this is nice and clean. Nice work. And it always makes me feel good, Is there any other like method you could recommend to get hair off the meat and not in the field? We're going to get back to that in just a minute. Like I'm in that circumstance where you're skinning the deer out at home and getting it ready to go to the butcher.
Yeah. So the big thing that I do, if you're dealing with antelope, deer, elk, moose, not a bear, like you heard me mention before, that's a different kind of hair. It's not a hollow hair. But if you've got an animal with a hollow hair, what I use and some other butchers do, it takes a little bit of a trick to get used to it, because when I say this, you're going to kind of go, what? So I actually use a pocket torch.
Pocket torch?
And Yeah, one of those little butane microtorch things that you can buy from Harbor Freight or whatever for $10. I fill that thing up with butane, and you can take that thing and just lightly go over the hair. You want to keep that flame away from the meat, but you just go lightly over that hair, and you'll see that hair pop. It'll pop right off of there.
Really?
But if you get too close, it'll start taking that outer layer of sinew, if you will. They have an actual right word for that stuff, but
I know
basically
what you're talking about.
The loose slimy skin. Yeah, It'll start cooking that, and you do not want that.
Okay.
Because now you just opened up for bacteria pockets. But once you figure out that little trick, and you can take that wet washcloth or that damp washcloth, and you can get the majority of the hair off of there. But then when you get those stragglers, just take that pocket torch to it, and it'll pop them right off there.
I don't know if you guys know this yet, but hunting season is knocking on our door. In fact, some states it's already even open. I'm seeing pictures on social media. It's coming, guys. Have you gotten your SKRE gear? SKRE is extreme mountain gear that is designed for rugged western hunting like we talk about on this show all the time. Complete layering system for all terrain and all conditions. Gear designed to adapt to the weather, rugged gear backed by a lifetime warranty. The VIP sizing and exchange program is amazing. If you get the wrong size in the mail or something's not right, you send it back for free. They send you the mailing slip for it and take care of everything. Guys, this is great gear. I've been running SKRE for a long time now, and I really, really like it. It's a great company story. The owner is real big on having high-performance technical hunting apparel at a responsible price, and that's what you're going to get with SKRE. You know how it goes. You can go drop a small fortune on some of this gear out there, right? And we all love to have it. I love having this gear. But with SKRE, you're going to get the high-performance gear. You're going to get everything that you would expect on a high-performance kind of company like this with the gear you're going to get, but you're not going to break the bank. You don't need to sell your kids. You don't need to take out a second mortgage. Just get you some SKRE gear. And at checkout, go ahead and use the promo code The Western Huntsman for 15% off and free shipping. That's a smoking deal. And Huntsman is spelled Huntsman. A is in apple. The Western Huntsman at checkout with SKRE gear. You should check out the elk bundle they have. It's pretty spectacular. Hope you guys check it out. I appreciate you supporting our sponsors. And our other sponsor is Phelps Game Calls. Guys, the premier call company. Everybody knows Phelps. We all love Phelps. If you're not using Phelps Game Calls, you're not doing it right. Okay. No, I'm serious, guys. Phelps is a company that was born out of this great American success story that started something small and it turned into this big company that everybody knows now. I use Phelps for my elk calls. I use Phelps for predator calls. They've got some new deer calls coming out. It's going to be great. So I use the AMP series for the elk. You guys know September's on its way. Or it could possibly be here by the time you're listening to this. Who knows? But September's on its way. My favorite time of year, better than Christmas, better than anything. September, man. Get your AMP calls. I really like the Maverick and the Black AMP. Those two are screaming reeds. And there's a bunch of other reeds for different types of pallets, if you will, or the way that you use a call. It might change, so you got to try a little bit of everything. And the pink call is fantastic. But personally, I like that Black AMP, that Maverick reed. Those two are kind of my go-tos when it comes to calling in elk, and boy, do they work. Again, check out, guys. Phelps has given us a promo code to use. It is Huntsman10, Huntsman 10, number 10. So you'll get 10% off at checkout. Go to Phelps.com and check it out. It's going to be in the show notes. And lastly, just as a bonus promo code for you guys that are in the market for a new set of boots, I love the Explorers from Hoffman boots. They are badass boots. They will get you up the mountain. They will get you down the mountain for several seasons. Check them out. The promo code for Hoffman boots is Huntsman15. Huntsman is all caps lock. Huntsman 15. Go ahead and check that out. It'll be in the show notes, and get you some new boots, and let me know what you think. Thanks, guys. Here we go. Let's get back into it. So I have an idea for you, and like for a viral YouTube video, you should make a video of you doing that to show the technique that you use. And like that thing would be pretty handy if you could do that.
I think there is actually a video.
Is there a video?
I think that's where I think, yeah, because I learned it from the dude that, what is it, Outdoor Edge or something like that. I think it was one of his videos that I seen that on. I'm like, man, that's a great idea. I never even thought about that. And so I did it. And in my first one, I was pretty glad it was my deer because it got right into that rib meat. And I love rib meat on a mule deer. I don't think there's anything better on a mule deer is those ribs. But I did it on some of that, and I watched that stuff separate, and I'm like, oh, that's probably not good.
Huh.
And it kind of screwed that section up. But I think there is a video out there of it.
All right,
but you won't find a lot of butchers that do it because obviously you're in a cold storage room, so heat you don't want. So like I don't use a micro torch in my shop because I just don't. I can't afford to lose my cool's air.
Sure. So what is you mentioned don't do that with like a bear or the non-hollowed hair. Which I don't even know what you're talking about with that. Just because I'm not the smartest dude anyway. But what's the difference with bear, the hide and the hair that comes off a bear?
So bear is fur. It's not hair. So hair, kind of like what you get off your legs or off your head, is the same follicle, whatever you want to call it, same stuff that your fingernail is, whatever, but it's hollow. Well, on a bear, it's fur, so it's actually not hollow. It's all the way through. It's one membrane, if you will.
Gotcha. So how do you get that hair off?
With a knife. That's the only way. And you'll never. That's the problem with bears, and that's why a lot of butcher shops won't take them. Is that's kind of like when I do a bear in my shop, I have to completely clean my table. You'll always have hair on a bear, no matter how good you are at cleaning them. You'll always have some excess hair. But after I'm done with one quarter, I have to scrub the table down, scrub my knives down, and then start on the next quarter. Just because that hair transfer is just ridiculous, especially on a bear.
Interesting.
And you cannot have that hair transfer because that's essentially bacteria and stuff like that. Plus, you don't want to eat hair.
Yeah. No, it's not very good. So, freaks my wife out when she opens a package of meat and there's hair in it. So, okay. Let's go back to what you were talking about when we're in the field and we're breaking down an elk. Or whatever, a bear, deer. On all of those, you're breaking the ball joint on anything, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. The internet. I keep getting the internet is unstable warning. So we'll just keep rolling. Whatever. Getting back to being in the field with an elk. Okay. We're breaking down. The thing that is in my mind from what you had mentioned, are you saying that instead of doing the gutless method, you're gonna break those ball joints and separate the rear quarters, and then you're gonna gut the elk, and then continue breaking down the rest of the elk after it's gutted?
Right. Yeah. Well, so initially, I mean, I've already got the cavity open. I've already got the majority of the guts out, except for, the diaphragm and the heart and stuff like that. And then I'll go ahead and roll that thing up. I'll get those ball joints broke open, and then I'll start my skinning process. And I just skin down the sides. I don't worry about trying to get to the back of it or anything like that. And then, on an elk, I'll bust out the saw and get that, rib cage open and stuff like that, finish taking the diaphragm and the esophagus and all that stuff out. But what that's doing is that's actually opening that cavity up to where it can start cooling immediately. And that's going to really save your meat. With the gutless method, you're zipping along the back and you're pulling one side off, but the only problem is you're laying on the other side, so you're creating hot spots in there. And you're leaving those guts in there that's actually got bacteria growing, because that blood's not circulating anymore. So now you got immediate bacteria growth. And me, I just don't like it. I mean, there are guys out there that can do it really fast, and that's great. I'm not one of them. I would rather
I'm
break
slow.
it down the old-fashioned way. And then once you get everything broke down, then you can roll it over. And, after you get, the rib cage clean and all that stuff, you take those tenderloins out, and then you can roll it over and take your back strap off or your loin, whatever you like to call them. And then you can take your neck meat off.
So basically, you're doing the gutless method, but just gutting the elk.
Yeah, it's basically backwards of the gutless method. I'm just doing from the bottom side. There's a traditional way of, like back in the 80s and 90s. That's how guys did it.
Yeah. I think this the gutless method, as we know it, I think was kind of a rare thing, and now it's become more popular with some of the like internet content and stuff that's out there. So it actually makes a lot of sense, man. I wouldn't have thought of that. I because the gutless method is just makes it easy and it's cleaner.
It's definitely a lot cleaner.
Yeah, but it makes sense to get that when you do open that cavity up and start pulling those guts out, I mean it's usually, I don't care, well, I mean temperature outside does matter, but it's almost always steaming. There's a lot of heat in there.
Yep.
And so if it's taking you 2 hours to break an elk down, that's a long time for that heat to sit in there. So that, I mean, in my mind, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's essentially why I do the ball joints too. You'll get that same steam effect when you break those ball joints. Like I showed a gentleman on his first bear this year. He didn't know how to gut it or nothing, so I went over there and I showed him to break those ball joints, and I showed him the steam coming out, and it was 60 degrees outside, but you can still see a little bit of steam coming out of those things.
Gotcha.
There's a lot of heat trapped up in there.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, that makes total sense. Okay. Once you have, so we've gone through that process. We've gutted the elk, and now we're starting to break it down. We're putting it in meat bags and hanging it. Any advice in terms of how to keep the meat cool? Are you deboning? Do you debone?
Sometimes it really depends on where I'm at. If I'm only a mile or two in, now I'll keep the bone on because I'd rather have the bone on to cut up later.
What? How come?
It's just easier to deal with.
Okay.
You get guys that, I mean, if a guy knows how to bone out properly, then it's not so bad. But if a guy doesn't, and he's essentially what I like to call and what other butchers like to call chasing sinew, which anybody that's ever broken an animal down or done any type of meat, they understand what those sinew pockets are. If you start chasing that, before you know it, you went from 5 groups of meat, 5 chunks of meat, and now you got 12. Well, you just ruined 90% of your steaks. So yeah, I always recommend, if you can, to leave the bone in, but sometimes you can't.
I've never deboned. I don't even know, and I wouldn't know how to do it properly. I'd be like what you said. I'd lose a bunch of the steaks and stuff. We got the meat is broken down. We got it in game bags now at this point, and let's say it's 70, 80 degrees, typical Idaho or Wyoming, Montana temperature in September. You guys in like Arizona or southern Utah or New Mexico or something, you guys are on your own with that. I don't even know where to start with that. Their temperatures are crazy when they're hunting. So you've got
fast.
Yeah, run fast. Get a horse, something. Anyway, you've got it all, hung, whatever. What do you recommend in terms of keeping them? Are you looking for just shade, or maybe if you could hang them over a creek or something? Let's say it's going to be a good day or so before you can get it in the truck and get it off the mountain and down into a freezer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I always try to get them in a tree, but if I don't have a tree nearby, the big thing is you always want to have basically 360 degrees worth of air getting to that. Because if not, if you just lay it on the ground, you're creating a hot spot on one side, which is, that's how you're going to get sour. But I'll see if I can't find sticks or sagebrush or something like that, and I'll pile it up on top of there. If that's what I'm left with, that way I can still get air circulation around it. But yeah, and in retrospect, in a perfect world, yeah, if I can get it close to a creek hanging in a tree, you bet. that's exactly where I'm going to go. And I like to hang my meat not on the same branch. I like to kind of stagger it through the tree, and that's pretty much allowing the meat not to slap together if it gets windy outside, and it's also allowing for that air to circulate around.
I didn't think about that. What happens when the meat kind of slaps around, or if you start putting it in your truck to take it back to town, and you start stacking it, is there a negative impact to that?
Well, if you're stacked real tight, no. But like if you're hanging in a tree or you're hanging in the garage or something like that, and you got a couple of quarters off the same animal, it's not as bad. But what happens if somebody slaps you on the leg? Well, you get a bruise.
Yeah.
So that's essentially the same thing that's happening in the tree. Is you're just sitting there and that meat just bruising itself. If you go into a meat locker, this elk can't touch this elk because now you get cross contamination and that kind of stuff, plus the bruising.
Gotcha. Gotcha. No, this is good stuff, dude. I can talk to you for a while. These are like questions that I've always like. Sometimes you know how it goes when, especially in my position where I've got this podcast. Sometimes I'm asking questions and I feel like they're dumb questions, but it's also something that I've just never really known. And so I think it's good to clear it up. You know what I mean?
I don't think there are any dumb questions.
Yeah, especially with meat care. And there's a lot of different opinions out there on some of this stuff. But yeah, it's just good. I think everybody could use a refresher on this every year because you just never know. I mean, I've gotten some deer back from the butcher and they tasted like shit. And it's like I don't know if it's something I did or something that happened at the butcher or if it's not even my deer. And so I'm always curious about that.
Or if it's just your deer. I mean, some animals just do have that gamey taste, but I try to make it, and all my friends that hunt with me and stuff like that, like I've showed them my style of meat care, and it really just kind of saves on the flavor, if you will. Like my favorite meat all time is mule deer.
Is it really?
Mule deer steak. Oh yeah, I love mule deer. I like that little bit of gaminess to it, but I've never had a mule deer that tasted bad that I cut up or that I took care of in the field. Now, I have had mule deer does and stuff like that somebody else will do, and they're like, hey, let's do a barbecue. And it's like, this is rancid. This is bad.
Yeah. Do you have an opinion on with specific to mule deer, like as to what creates that? Like I've had mule deer that I've taken from really high country seem to taste better than mule deer that I've shot in maybe some lower country. And I'm always curious as to like why that is. Is that just something that circumstantially is in my mind, or that just it was coincidental, or is there something to the high versus low elevation mule deer?
I think what it really comes down to, what I've noticed is fat content. If your animal is real super lean, it's going to have a better flavor to it. If it's real fatty, other than obviously a deer that's been hanging out in a cornfield for its whole life.
Yeah.
But if you find some of those lower land deer that have been not really using their muscles too much, and they're just kind of eating whatever's in sight, they're munching on sagebrush browse or whatever. They're going to tend to be a little more gamier. Where those high country deer, they're constantly running around. They're eating good grasses. That's the big thing. I think food source is probably the biggest thing. Is you got those alpine grasses up there in that high country versus that lowland country, where here in Idaho we get a lot of sagebrush and bunch grass and stuff like that. And I think it just kind of changes the flavor of them a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. So it's interesting. I think you're like the first dude that's ever said mule deer is your favorite, because I personally really like mule deer as well. My wife, though, I've tried to figure out how to bring home a deer and be like, oh no, don't worry, it's a whitetail. Because she does, she had one bad experience with that one deer I was telling you. It just it really didn't taste very good.
And we tried to do all sorts of stuff to cover the flavor, and marinate them like for 2 days and stuff. And it was just kind of funky. And it was shot in November. And so it's not like it was hot, it was nice and cold. It froze. Anyway, it's just, no pun intended, left a bad taste in her mouth for mule deer. And so I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get her off that kick, because I mean, these whitetail that we get here locally, they do taste good. But I'm a mule deer hunter by, that's just what I've always done. It's just interesting. It's just interesting how I'm going to, you got any advice for me, man? How do I make my wife like mule deer again?
Well, so now you're calling me out, because everybody that I've tricked into eating things are now going to start to realize, if they listen to this podcast, that they've been eating mule deer and bear this whole time and they had no idea. But like my mom, she does not like game meat. She grew up on it. She just doesn't have a taste for it. She'll eat some pepperoni and stuff that I make on occasion, but she does not like to eat steaks and stuff like that. And my dad does. So they'll come over for a barbecue, and I slow smoke everything. I'm not a Traeger fan. Sorry, all you Traeger fans. I'm not a plug it in and let's see some smoke come out of this thing kind of guy. I'm an old fashioned smoker, so I chop wood and
oh, you chop your own wood and everything, huh?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sweet. I've got my wife calls it Smoker Village, but I've got 5 smokers, and every one of them are wood and charcoal fed.
That's sweet, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Huh.
So
cool. No, I like that. Yeah, I haven't joined the Traeger club yet, or any of those types yet. I've been thinking about it though. I don't know. I guess
to each their own, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, to each their own for sure. I see. I'm a charcoal guy. I've like mastered barbecuing with charcoal, and it's a totally different thing than smoking. So we're not even talking about the same thing, but that's been my hesitation is I know how to cook things on charcoal over charcoal so well. I don't want to switch to something like a Traeger and feel like I'm starting all over again. And smoking is a whole different art.
Well, without giving away too many of my secrets, I'll give you a call one of these days and give you kind of a rundown where you can take a normal style charcoal smoker and still be able to smoke some meat pretty easily.
Okay. I'm going to take you up on that. I like that. Yeah. So let's talk about, let's talk about Get Your Meat LLC for a minute. First of all, you're in the Boise area, right?
I am.
What is that, like a vicious dog you got in the background? What's going on there?
Well, I got about 7 Australian Shepherds behind me that they just don't ever be quiet.
So anyways, you're in the Boise area, and you've got, obviously you've got meat coming in. Tell the audience why you think it would be better for them to bring their meat to you for butcher versus some of your competitors down there.
Okay. Well, without shooting any of my competitors in the foot, I won't talk bad about anybody, but if you bring something to me, it's exactly what my name is. Get your meat. I'm going to work on just your animal, and I will not start another animal. I will not move anything around until your animal is done, packaged, and sitting in the freezer waiting for you to come pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
I cut it to what you want, within reason. If you bring me a 40-pound antelope, we say, and you want 50 pounds of hamburger, well, I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen. But within reason.
Does that happen?
It does. It does. It hasn't happened, ever since I started this business. But I mean, it in some of the other butcher shops and stuff, that I cut up wild game for. You always get that guy in there thinks well, it was hard for me to pack out, so it must be 300 pounds. Well, it's an antelope. I'm sorry, it weighs about 60. So,
how much meat are people typically getting off an antelope?
Depending on how they break it down, or bring it to me, typically you're going to get you're going to yield about 60 to 65% of bone-in hanging weight.
Okay.
Typically.
See, I didn't know that. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. You'll get, obviously with bloodshot and like I don't get too far on like the ossobuco, the hams and stuff like that. I don't get all the way down to the tendons and stuff like that because you don't want to chew on leather.
Sure.
But you know, so you figure most antelope have been coming in, I think, processed weight and everything, anywhere between 22 and 38 pounds.
Okay.
That's processed weight.
Huh. And like this is just a curiosity thing for me, like with people. And I've had a lot of conversations with people and they're like, I got screwed by the butcher. I took in this deer, and in my mind, this thing was a monster, blah, blah, blah. And all I got back was this little box of meat. Do you get that reaction a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I have gotten it. I've gotten it a couple of times from people, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. That, you know, it was heavy for me, or you know, it's my biggest deer or whatever, and so people have it in their mind that, well, the hanging weight of the deer is 140 pounds, so I should get 135 pounds of meat. Well, no, that's not how it works. And you know, me, like if you bring in a full carcass, I'm going to trim everything I can. I'm going to pick that bone as clean as possible because I see it as, if this was my animal, this is what I would do for myself. If I'm not going to eat it, I wouldn't expect anybody else to eat it, kind of thing. Yeah. And I don't like to waste anything. Like I cut up a giant bull, guy's first archery bull this year, giant bull. I had, it was a boned out animal. It was 189 pound meat weight, which is just a giant.
That is huge.
I bet you I had 15 pounds of waste out of that whole thing. So, I mean, I'm really good at keeping my knife right up against that sinew, so you're not getting that meat waste. That's, you know, full-time butchers that do it all day, they don't have the time to make sure that you're going to get every little ounce of that meat. But I'll try my best to get it off.
Yeah, I could tell you've been doing that because I watch it. You do a lot of you know, posts on Facebook and whatever, and I can watch it come through. It does feel like from my perspective, if I'm a guy living in Boise, I like the one-on-one person and like I don't know, the individual relationship type kind of style that you do. You know, hey, and that's a huge thing because this is an emotional, I can imagine this being an emotional industry, being a butcher for wild game meat. People, they put their heart and souls into this hunt, right? And the meat is a big, huge factor to why they even do it. And so dealing with the public on something like that, especially people that are, you know, it might be their first deer, or their first elk or something, and they don't know how much meat they're going to get back. And just those kind of attitudes, good or bad, I can see this being a super, like, highly emotionally charged place to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I definitely understand what you're saying. Yeah, it can definitely, you know, it has its obviously low spots and frustrations and stuff like that. But, you know, I guess I try to keep the positive attitude. Everybody that comes through my door, whether I just met you or I've known you for years, I appreciate you're my best friend, and I'm going to do my damnedest to, you know, get you every ounce of it, if you will, and make sure that your stuff is clean. And, you know, I'm a big believer, you know, if I'm not willing to eat it, then you shouldn't have to eat it. And I know how much effort it takes in to go and get one of these animals.
Yeah. So I think that makes a big difference. That makes a big difference when the butcher is a hunter as well.
Right. Yeah. The only bad thing about this let's start a butcher shop thing that I found, and I guess I kind of always knew it, but like I'm supposed to be elk hunting right now. But
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I am going to close my shop the last 2 weeks of September because it's my annual trip. I've been doing it for years. But I mean, if if we get a bunch of animals on the ground, well, guess what? I'm coming home early, and I'll call people and let everybody know, hey, I'm open back up, because it's right now. With COVID and everything, a lot of these places aren't even taking meat. So I really don't want to put a guy out.
Yeah, for sure. That would be my biggest hesitation right there, is because this is like your busy time, man, and it's hunting season at the same time. So I don't know how that plays out, but I like the idea. And like I said, I wish you were closer. I'd bring everything to you, but I'm not driving it. Let me correct my earlier mileage. I think we're like 400 miles apart, not 750. But anyway, gosh, that's awesome, man. I'm proud of you. I think this is cool. Get Your Meat LLC. If you guys are in Boise, in the Boise area, give Andy a call. I'm gonna have the website linked in the show notes, so you guys can all the information, his phone number, directions, address, all that kind of stuff is there. Looks like there's a tab somebody can click on, and it says get quote. So you can be like, hey, how much to butcher my elk or whatever, and you can kind of give them some basic numbers or something. Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's pretty much. I'm just going to tell you, it's $1 a pound hanging weight is what that is, and kind of go over, like, if you want some pepperoni or something like that made up, I'll tell you what the price for that is.
Do you do any jerky?
I do. Yeah, I do whole muscle and burger jerky.
Oh, really?
As well as pepperoni, summer sausage. I can do salami, but I don't have a curing chamber, and dry cured salami is 10 weeks to get it done in a curing chamber.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. I actually had a bear this last spring. A guy brought me a bear and wanted salami, and I kept trying to tell him, you're thinking summer sausage, and he's like, no, it's salami. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll figure it out. So I did, and luckily I found a little deal online. It's called hybrid salami. It allowed me to smoke it for 12 hours, because salami you don't cook at all. It's dry cured. It molds. You got to put culture in it and all that stuff for the mold. But this allowed me to smoke it for 12 hours, and then I stuck it in the refrigerator for 23 days, and then it finally started molding up. And then I checked. You have to check the weight, before and after, and once it loses 40%, then it's ready to go, and that's what it initially had done.
Man,
and the guy eats it all the time. It's actually his salami is actually on that website there.
On this page, so one of these pictures.
Yeah, on the pictures there,
I can see
like 4 pieces of. Yeah, that's bear salami.
Oh, gotcha. That's awesome. Is there anything that you can say that you think, like, okay, here's the biggest thing that hunters do that ruins their meat before they get it to me, or just, maybe not ruins it, but makes it not taste as good? Is there like one thing that people can have in their mind before we jump off of this?
Yeah, actually, I can think of one thing off the top of my head. Especially if you're boning it out or anything like that, and you're stuffing things in meat sacks. If you got a bunch of hair on one piece of meat, and then you stuff it in a bag that's full of meat, guess what? You just transferred all that hair throughout that whole thing, and you're going to make a butcher very not happy with you.
Oh, man.
So
that sucks. I hate that. Like, hair is a bane of my existence, man, when it comes to meat.
Yep. So if you can do anything, obviously, Idaho state law requires you to leave evidence of sex. So, if you've got a small bag, or you got those disposable bags or whatever, those throwaway bags, drop it in there first, tie it off, and then drop the rest of your meat in there. That'll help with, some of that hair transfer.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point.
I think that's my ultimate pet peeve, is having hair and dirt come into my shop, because legally a lot of shops can't accept it, especially those USDA shops, and my permitting doesn't allow me if it's got a lot of hair. Like, I had to turn away an elk earlier today, which made me very sad, but I mean, it was covered in hair. It still had half the hide on it. And it was like, no, I can't accept that, and I can't skin your animal out here. I don't have a kill floor set up, so unfortunately I'm not set up for that.
Okay, let me throw another one at you. When hunters are breaking down a bigger animal like an elk or mule deer, and they're getting, in their mind, they're getting as much meat as they can. Is there like a consistency or a pattern that a lot of hunters miss a certain cut of meat when they're doing like this gutless or breaking down an elk, that is like you get all the meat and you realize it's not in there and it drives you crazy kind of thing?
Like they think they got the meat, but they just didn't, or what?
Or they don't even know to cut that kind of meat off, like that like neck meat, for example, or something along those lines.
Yeah, I would say the two biggest things I can think of off the top of my head is going to be your neck meat and your flank. And the flank is that brisket all the way down. People don't think to grab that, and that's some of the best meat. That flank, it's never been worked. It's extremely tender. I don't know if you've ever had beef flank steak or anything like that. I mean,
just the other night.
Very good.
Yeah, it's super good.
I mean, so that would be my big thing. I always make sure I take the flank, which if somebody doesn't know where the flank is, I'll kind of give you a rundown. So along the rib cage, right where it starts to open up, that's the end of the brisket there. And then that flank goes all the way down to the rear ham. It's just that skirt, if you will, steak, flank steak, whatever you want to call it. And get that meat off there. It'll look like it's got a bunch of sinew and stuff, and it's not really worth taking. But if a guy knows how to cut meat, he can actually take that sinew off very easily and never use a knife to do it.
Huh.
So
is that the same on a moo cow? Is that the same thing that you get when you're getting like a flank steak from, like, say a London broil?
Yeah,
a London broil is not a chunk of meat. It's a way of cooking the meat, right? But that's generally what you see packaged and labeled as a London broil, right? Or am I off on that?
No, you're pretty close. Yeah, and I actually, it's actually not the flank steak. The skirt steak is what I meant to say.
Oh, skirt steak. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, the skirt is what. Yeah, not the flank steak. Yeah, no, okay. The skirt steak is right there on the opening of that rib cage. All the way down to that hand.
I know what you're talking about. I think I've been guilty of that too. So, and that is what you feel like a lot of hunters miss that, and they don't bring it into you.
Yeah, or they just look at it. Well, on a deer or an antelope, it may not be worth your time to do it, but on like an elk, you're going to get a pretty healthy chunk of meat out of that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and. I think a lot of guys just think, well, that's just going to be too much work. I mean, it's real easy for them to cut it, but if they're going to butcher it themselves, it's a lot of work if you don't know the technique, how to skin those things out just right.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
I grab a hold of it and age it just a little bit, and I can just grab a hold of it with my hand and pull it apart.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome, man. I've got some good information out of this. And I say this on the podcast all the time, but I benefit the most from this podcast because I learn. Because I'm the one asking the questions, right? And I know people listen to it sometimes and they're like, man, I wish you would have asked this, or I wish you would have asked that. I apologize. I wish I could read your minds, but for me, I got a lot out of this conversation. So what I would say is for you guys down in Boise, which if you listen to the last episode, you know that Boise is the second biggest area for downloads for this podcast. I was blown away, man. I announced it on the last one, and I was blown away. Seattle and Tacoma are the number one spot. Can you believe that?
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy.
It's crazy. I didn't know there was all those hunters over there. So shout out to Seattle and Tacoma. You guys are killing it over there. So, but Boise's the second biggest area. What's that?
I was going to say, I wish I could figure out the little podcast thing that I've got. I listen to your show all the time, and I can't figure out for the life of me how to download them. I always hear, you got to download them and I get credit for it and all this stuff. And it's like, well, I don't know how to do that.
Well, if you're listening to it, so they're counting that as a download. If you're just streaming the podcast, that's a download.
Sweet.
They're counting that. But you can also actually download it to your phone. Like when my wife and I, we go camping a lot. So when we're out of service, we'll sit at home the night before and we'll download a few podcasts so that we could sit on the river and listen to different podcasts and stuff. And so that's, I don't know. I'm not the most techie guy you'll ever meet, man, but that's just kind of what I took away with. But anyway, Boise area, you guys, if you're in the area, Andy is, you can, and I'm sure you know this just from listening to this episode, he's a straight shooter. You're going to get your own meat back. I feel like you're one of those guys that we can just trust, and you're going to take care of everybody the right way. And I'd encourage people to jump on your website and definitely use your services this year.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah. I try to treat everybody, the way I want to be treated, and I don't like to be treated very unkindly. So
yeah. No, I hear you for sure. So I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Let's we'll plan to do it again, and definitely keep me posted as to how your elk season unfolds and all these hunting season that are knocking on the door right now. See, my elk season doesn't start till Sunday. So I sit up here and I'm super jealous of all you guys in the rest of Idaho outside south of the Panhandle that get a hunt a week earlier. But it's coming. So anyway, by the time this releases, I'll be already hunting. So
you'll be ready to bring me an animal, huh?
That's right. I'll make the drive, man. I'm driving down there. So,
or just call me up and say, "Hey, I need you to come to a mobile thing over here."
Yeah, that comes with a complete pack out off the mountain, right?
Yeah.
All right.
I was talking with Nate Davenport a while back, and I was like, "Yeah, maybe I'll have to make up a whole bunch of pepperoni and come up that way." So if I do, I'll hit you up too. Maybe we'll make a weekend out of it, fishing or go dink around or something.
Yeah, definitely. And then we can get all three of us in the studio and record some, aimless conversation. It'd be fun.
Hey, I like aimless.
I do too, man. I specialize in it. So, cool. Thanks a bunch for coming on, man. This has been great, and let's keep in touch for sure.
Sounds good. Yeah, we'll do it.
You made it all the way to the end. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. We sure appreciate your support. This is Jim Huntsman signing off and reminding you to check us out at Instagram at The Western Huntsman and on Facebook at The Western Huntsman. And you can also check out the website at thewesternhuntsman.com. Thanks again. We'll see you guys next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.